Hello and welcome. This is video 13 in a 13-part series about World War II. In today's video, we'll talk about the final steps to winning the war in the Pacific and finally bringing about an end to World War II. So let's get started. Battle of Guadalcanal and the beginning of the island hopping campaign. And so basically what you see moving forward from Guadalcanal is slowly but surely Japan losing territory, America and the other allies pushing them back closer and closer to Japan, and getting into the summer of 1945. Basically, the only thing left to happen was for Japan to surrender. All of the territory that they had acquired, they had lost, and it was just simply Japan. The really tough part, though, at this point was, even though it seemed clear to anybody else that the war was lost, Japan had lost, they did not seem, at least from a leadership standpoint, they did not seem any closer to surrender than they had at any other point during the war. And so that became the real challenge. If there's not much left to do, yet it doesn't seem to be any closer to surrender, what do you do? So with Japan, the only thing left that Japan possessed, and an unwillingness to surrender, plans began to be developed for just a regular invasion of Japan. And when you look at sources that talk about this process, you see a variety of estimates. On the low end, when it comes to the amount of American lives expected to be lost or thought that could be lost in a full-scale invasion of Japan, you see the number 250,000. The text that we refer to sometimes for this class says 500,000. I've seen some that have even higher estimates. The main point here is when Allied commanders began to look at what would it take to invade Japan and, in essence, through that force a Japanese surrender, it was going to be very, very costly. Even in the most conservative estimates, it'd be very, very costly in American lives, and then many, many more Japanese lives would be expected to be lost in the process. And so one thing that's always considered is what is going to be the cost of an action. And so there was concern that it was going to be extremely costly. This is where something that had been in the works for some time at this point became potentially relevant. During the World War II years, there was something taking place called the Manhattan Project, which was a very top secret project that, among other things, was working on what would become the atomic bomb. This was such a secret program that, as Vice President, Harry Truman did not know about the Manhattan Project. He didn't learn about the Manhattan Project until he became president himself in April of 1945. And getting into July of 1945, the Manhattan Project produced a successful detonation of an atomic bomb. And basically, this was going to be a significantly more powerful weapon than anything that had ever been produced before, not even close. And you can see on the screen, July 16th is when a successful detonation happened. Now, the supplies of bomb material and potential bombs that could be made at this point were limited, but Truman was told that we did have the capacity to detonate more bombs. And so communications were made with Japan to let them know that we wanted them to surrender, we wanted an end to the war, and if not, that we would, I forget quite what the phrase was, but basically we would throw everything we had at them, and they would be sorry. Unfortunately, after trying to communicate that it's super important that they surrender, Japan still wouldn't do it. As a result, we dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima on August 6th, 1945. Hiroshima was a city about the size of Wichita, actually. And through the bombing of the city, about 70 to 80,000 people died. So a significant part of the population of the city, not the entire city, but a significant portion of the population. Still no word from Japan on surrendering. As a result, a couple days later, 3 days later, on the 9th of August, a second bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. This was another city that was similar in size to Wichita, with similar results as far as deaths were concerned. These bombs would prove to be pretty devastating weapons. Again, as a single bomb, they caused far more damage than any single bomb in existence at this time, and so it was quite devastating. Now, fortunately, after the second bomb was detonated on Nagasaki, Japanese officials did begin to talk surrender, and eventually, on September 2nd, 1945, a formal surrender took place, and we could declare victory over Japan. And so with this, World War II officially came to an end. Now, the next unit that we're going to get into, and it'll be our final one for the class, will be a look at some of the things that happened after World War II was done. And the last thing I'll say at this point is, in contrast to the peace settlement process after World War I, things do go quite a bit better after World War II. Now, it won't be without its challenges, and we'll definitely address that in the next few lessons. But one thing about the war with Japan is, as awful as some of the fighting was, and as devastating as the end was using atomic bombs, one thing that would be a positive moving forward is the United States would essentially work to be a partner with Japan to help them recover, rather than seeking to punish countries like Japan, like was true after World War I. We go about things in a lot better way, and still today we have a positive relationship with Japan that really began as soon as the war was finally over. Well, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you found it helpful and informative at understanding the end of the fighting for World War II in the Pacific. Hopefully you've been able to tune in for many of these videos in this series on World War II. Thanks for watching.